All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Commanders Film Room. I'm your host, George Carmen, with my co-host, Mark Bullock. Some positive news here in the DC, some free agent frenzy kind of happening today. A lot of positive things going on here. Guys, definitely give us a like and subscribe on YouTube or on X. I'm George Carmi. It's Mark Bullock NFL over there. So you don't miss any episodes and you can follow along with us. Mark, definitely some positive news today. I know we saw earlier during the legal tampering period with Adam Peters, a little bit of stress with the fan base a little bit. Things are kind of starting off slow. But I guess my question to you has, what's up, Juan? How you doing, man? I guess my question to you has Adam Peters redeemed himself over the last couple of days? And the first day, was the criticism justified in your opinion?
No, I don't think the criticism was justified at all. I think everyone was getting a bit angsty and seeing big teams go off the board. And they'd been built this free agency. They were going to be aggressive and go after big targets. And they did. Like, by all reports, they offered more than what the Colts did for Pierce. And Pierce decided he wanted to stay in Indy. And you can't really do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
They went big after Linderbaum, but the Raiders thought they had a ton of cap space by trading away Crosby and wanted to get their central point of their offensive line, and they were willing to go to a nuts contract for him.
Yeah.
And I think the underrated part of that is it was only a 3-year deal. So Linderbaum will be 28 when he gets to free agency again and can reset the market again. So that was a nuts contract, and so I can understand why they didn't go to that, and clearly the Raiders were not going to be outbid if they were willing to go to that. So, like, you can't do a huge amount about that. You have to draw a line somewhere. And apparently they were in on Jalen Phillips. They missed on that, and everyone's saying, well, you have to go and overpay to get free agents, and they probably did overpay a little bit for Oweh, but they got him in the door, and now we're seeing that they've pivoted to other targets, and they've been managing to bring in a bunch of younger, more athletic guys, which is what everyone wanted them to do in the offseason. So, yeah, I think it was just a case of people being angsty on day one, and if they waited 24 or 48 hours, they feel a lot better about things.
All right, what's up, Progress? Is hey guys, like we feel like we won the Super Bowl today. That's funny. I'm thinking of 357 people, 362 that are already dived in and watching the show today. I appreciate that. Yeah, Mark, I can't blame Adam Peters either. I think we heard fireworks, we heard explosions, we heard all these different things with free agency, and I think that kind of elevated our expectations. So we were really anxious going into free agency, and the big names we've been craving for the past month or so went off the board. But what I did like was the fact that Adam Peters was trying. He was going for Alec Pierce. He was going for Jalen Phillips. He did try Tyler Linderbaum. He was going for the big fish, but he was just missing, and that happens on occasion. You can't really get too upset by that. That being said, Oweh is a solid edge rusher. We got Chase on the other day too. Actually, I think today or this morning we got a dual edge class as well. Leo Chanel got added as well. I guess just after this first wave, Chigakonkwo even, Mark, do any of them kind of pop out to you? Anyone that you're more excited about, or one that's going to be a great fit for our team?
I quite like a lot of the fit so far of the guys I've watched. I do really like Oweh. He was someone I didn't watch him or catch him much in the first cycle when I was looking through the free agents. I'd actually watched Chase on and thought of him as a fit. I'd watched Jalen Phillips and thought of him as a fit. I'd missed Oweh, and then I circled back to him like last week, and I was like, actually, this guy's pretty good. So I think that's got a high upside signing. I do like Chanel. I think there's upside there as well. I think he can be a better fit in this system than what he was with the Chiefs, which could obviously benefit him and make him a little bit more productive. And I do like Okonkwo as well. I think there are still some things for him to work on. And I don't think he is like necessarily a home run that you might call it, but I think he can be a pretty good player with the upside to reach that type of potential that people are hoping for from him. Certainly, I like the theme that they've gone with, where they're targeting a lot younger players. They're targeting more athletic players. Every year, every GM says we want to get younger, we want to get more athletic, but very rarely does that actually happen. But here, it's clearly a target for these guys, and I approve of that.
I agree. I think Adam Peters is finally putting his money where his mouth is, right? He always talked about getting younger and investing and kind of like, but we always hear the adage where you're going to invest in a free agent on the upside of their career. It seems like we're doing at this time, right? We're getting some 26-year-olds, 27-year-olds. And it's clear to me, at least, Adam Peters clearly has a type, right? He loves that RAS score. He loves the people that are fast, athletic, and so on and so forth. Leo Chanel's a 99 percentile linebacker. Okonkwo has a low RAS score, but it's kind of misleading, right? There's a lot of weight given to height and weight for the RAS score. Speed score is pretty high as well. We definitely have some high upside players there for sure. Let's get into it, Mark. We're here for the All 22. I definitely want to learn with you, and thank you for the guys in the chat. Just a quick shout out to you, Mark. Football Guy says Mark is the man. Great analysis. Has been a skin fan since the Rigo days. So thank you for joining us, Football Guy. I appreciate that. Let's get into it.
Thanks for those kind words. So let's start with the big ticket, Odafe Oweh. He is definitely, as you said, kind of an ascending rusher. He kind of had a few up and down years to start his career, and he was a bit raw coming out of college, but he was obviously an exceptional athlete, like 6'5", 255, something like that. Ran a 4.3, but not just a linear. So just linear straight line speed, which you need as an edge rusher. And what we've seen from him the last 2 years, and specifically like the last year where after he got traded to the Chargers and he was allowed to be a little bit more of a pure pass rusher, we've seen a plan kind of come together for him, and we'll get into that. But first, we'll start with just kind of individual moves where he's at. This is him working against Broncos left tackle Garrett Bowles, who's been one of the most consistent kind of high-level left tackles in the league for a while now. And what we're going to see is one of his favorite and most consistent moves, which is a cross chop, and we'll get into all the different aspects and details of it. So he's gonna come up the field initially, and we'll run this through here. So we'll see he gets off the snap pretty well. You can see he's getting off quicker than anyone else. And on his second step, he's way ahead of everyone else. And then on his third step, he's going to take this big inside jab step, and this is a really nice technical rush for this reason. And you'll see as he takes a big inside jab step, you'll see the difference in how Bowles has to block him. He starts taking this nice wide and deep drop, and suddenly when that inside step comes, he suddenly has to shift his weight back a little bit more, and we'll get into why that is important in a minute. But you see he takes that big inside jab step, and suddenly his weight is shifted a lot back. His hips are more open to the sideline rather than square to the defender, and that gives a path for Oweh to get to the edge. Now, what Oweh wants to do is use this cross chop move, where he takes this inside arm and he chops across the body of the tackle and gets the outside arm, trying to chop down and knock that outside arm to clear that path to the edge. So we'll see that here. You can see he's chopping across, and then he chops down with his outside arm to finish that move and get that arm down and clear that path to the edge. You can see Bowles now, his feet are stuck inside, his balance is lost, and Oweh has that path to the edge where he can get through to the quarterback. Now, unfortunately, fortunately and fortunately, one, he managed to occupy Bowles to give a free rusher in the B gap, but that free rusher means the quarterback had to turn and run, which meant that Oweh probably would have got a sack if the quarterback had to stand there, whereas the quarterback was already running away, so he couldn't get there. But still, just to show it was a nice pass rush move. Another example of it, and this time on the other side, so it shows some good versatility. This time he's working against the right tackle. I think it's Mike McGlinchey, and you see a similar type of move here, where he initially takes his first few steps up the field, and then he gives a little stutter. And this is something you see a lot of speed rushers do, and I think a lot of them do it a little too often. And Oweh can lean into it a little bit too often. But when you use a little stutter move, the whole idea is that you try to stop the tackle's feet, so that when you can see when he's initially sliding, he's nice and smooth, but when he gets stopped and has to restart, that's when these guys get a real advantage, because these guys are better athletes, right? And what you'll see here is you watch McGlinchey's feet as he's first moving smoothly, and then he has to stop his feet. He has to respect the kind of stutter and fake inside, and he shifts his weight back inside, and again, that will open that path to the edge. So you see a little stutter, a little jab inside, and you can see how his foot now is going back inside to respect that, and that gets the feet stopped. That gets his weight going backwards. Now he's having to lunge with his hands to try to catch the Oweh, and that means Oweh can use that same cross chop and the club with the outside hand, knock that outside hand down, give himself that clean path to the edge, gets nice and low, dips and bends around the edge, gets real close, somehow doesn't quite get the sack, gets his arm on the quarterback's shoulder, neither gets his arm on the ball. A fairly good job by Bo Nix avoiding this sack here. But his teammate does manage to come in and eventually clean it up. And so he doesn't get any gain, but it just shows a really nice technical move and how that kind of stutter move can be really effective when you can get a tackle to stop his feet, shift his weight. That's when you can use your athleticism to beat them to the edge to get before they can restart.
Mark, quick question for you. So my initial thoughts watching him and doing the research and looking at his profile, I guess is the ace up his sleeve is the fact that he's a speed rusher and he has length with his height and arm length. That's his bag essentially, or what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. The upside that he has is that speed off the edge, and obviously the size and the length is great as well. And the threat of the speed is huge. But if you just rely purely on the speed, you're kind of a one-trick pony. He's not that. What we saw with the Chargers is that he has a lot more to his bag than that, and hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate that here. And so this is him working against Eagles tackle Jordan Mailata, who he'll now be facing twice a year. This time we see another little stutter step, but this one shows again that there is some technical know-how and kind of a plan rather than just going at a guy and trying to beat him for speed. Like Mailata is one of the most athletic left tackles. You're not just going to beat him for speed constantly. So what we see here is another stutter rush. And as I said, like a guy like Chase Young used to use stutter rushes almost every rush, and that means that you kind of take away from your ability to burst by guys and threaten the edge. But when you mix it in properly with a rush plan, then it can become a really effective move. And when you mix it in and use different moves off of the stutter, that's when it becomes really effective. So what we'll see here is a couple different moves off of this stutter. So he'll come up the field, and then you see this little stutter again, stuttering his feet, stuttering his hands, getting the tackle to adjust his feet and his weight. And then the tackle kind of feels like, oh, okay, he's stuttering. Maybe he's transitioning to a different rush. He's not just threatening the edge. And so he drops his hands and tries to sit himself back, and that exposes his chest. And so Oweh gets his hands in at the chest, and you see this quite a lot. You'll see rushers do this little stutter and transition into a bull by exposing that chest. So that's a good start. But Mailata has seen that kind of rush all the time. And so he knows he's a big guy. He can withstand those kind of transitions to bull rushes. He's 320 pounds. He can just drop his weight and sit on that. But Oweh knows that as well. So he starts this transition to a bull rush. He extends his arm out. You see that arm length again. He gets his full lock. He shifts to a one arm rush, where it's one arm's longer than two. So he really stacks up Mailata. But what you can see is Mailata is now fully trying to drop anchor. You can see his feet are wide, he's bending at the knees, he's getting low, really sitting low in his stance to withstand that kind of power rush from Oweh. But Oweh knows that he's trying to do that. So instead of focusing on trying to bull rush him and drive him back, he then knows, okay, well, I can switch it up and I can go back to speed and burst to the edge. So what he does is, again, he suddenly drops that outside arm, does a little chop move to knock that outside hand away from Mailata, and he gets back to the edge, and then he's able to go and chase down Jalen Hurts from the sack. Now, that is, if I run this back, this is a longer developing rush. There's like 2 or 3 different moves. There's a stutter, there's the bull, there's the long arm, and then you're shedding the arm and clubbing the arm down and chasing the quarterback. So that is a longer developing play. You do need the coverage to hold up for that kind of a sack to work, but the coverage holds up. So it's still a nice rush.
And that was against an established offensive tackle with Jordan Mailata on the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's very great. Quick shout out to Joseph. What's up, man? Good to hear from you again. Long time no see. What's up, Dev? Dev says crossing the Conco, nice grabs. He still wants Caleb Downs. I don't mind adding more to our defense, a 27th overall defense. I wouldn't mind improving that by any means. And then Christian, what's up, Christian? How you doing all the way from the UK? He said, my God, Oweh seems like an absolute menace. That's pretty solid so far.
Yeah. So those were to show some individual moves that he has, the kind of different moves that he can do. But what I was really impressed with when I really started to dive into him and watch him in more detail was he has a rush plan that he's developing. I think he could still develop further and hit higher levels, but you see the best edge rushers set up rushes and they can sequence things so that on one rush they're using a certain move, and the next rush they're setting up that move with another one, and it really keeps the tackle from guessing, from being able to just sit on one move and negate that. So here we've got him working against the Dolphins. This is Patrick Paul, who was a second-round pick, I think, a year or two ago, and he's quietly developing into a really strong, athletic young left tackle, one of the better young left tackles in the league. So this is a good competition for him. And so first we're going to see this sequence that I'm going to show. These are 3 plays that all happened in a row. So it was a 3-play sequence. So the first we're going to see, he's going to come rushing up the field, and we're going to see that kind of same little stutter move, and then we're going to see that cross chop where you can see that inside arm chopping across, getting on the kind of elbow of Patrick Paul, challenging that edge. He comes in with that club to knock that arm down, and then he gets that edge, turns that corner, but Tua gets the ball out quickly. But that's just to show, hey, I can threaten the edge with a speed, and I can use a little stutter. I can chop your arm down. I can get you thinking outside. So now Patrick Paul on the very next play is thinking, actually, he kind of got the better of me on the outside there, but the ball got thrown quickly. So I better adjust and make sure I'm protecting that outside. So what does Oweh do on the very next play? He goes inside. So Patrick Paul sets up, gets a lot of depth and a lot of width on that first kick slide. He's clearly working to try to cut off that speed and that threat to the edge. So Oweh reads that and he decides, okay, well, I'll just adjust and go inside because you're leaving more of a gap inside. Your weight's going outside. I can attack the inside shoulder instead. So what does he do? Is he gets his hands into the chest of the blocker who was expecting, again, that outside move that he just saw. Gets his hands into the chest, quickly dips those hands and rips inside. And suddenly he's pressuring the quarterback really quickly on the inside edge. And now, again, Tua does a nice job avoiding that pressure and getting away, but it's a good pressure, forces him off the spot, and it's an incomplete pass. So those were 2 plays in a row where he beat him to the outside, then he's beaten to the inside. Now on the third play, which again is the very next play, he goes back to the outside. So it completes the sequence where he's beat him outside, he beat him inside. Now the tackle's like, okay, which way is he going to go? What is he going to do? So we come up again, and once again, we use a little stutter move. And now Paul's thinking, well, he's shown me a stutter and beat me outside. He's also beat me inside. What am I doing? How am I going to try to counteract this? And you can see that outside hand, he potentially is thinking that cross chop is coming again. So he drops that kind of outside hand low and away to avoid that chop. And so Oweh just goes, well, now your chest is exposed. I'll put my hands in your chest, knock you backwards. Now that hand comes up, and he can kind of shove that hand up and clear that path to the edge again. And he works around again and gets another pressure again. But Tua once again throws it away, but it's an incomplete pass. So
that was kind of an iffy call as well. Potentially the offensive lineman made a hold him there. But
sure.
What I like about this, Mark, what you always do is you do a great job of kind of painting the larger picture. It's the initial takeaway so far with the film study is that Oweh has a diversified skill set, right? He has multiple moves he can potentially use. He is athletic. He is 6'5". He has 34-inch arms. He's fast, but does have a little bit of power, does have a diversified skill set. He has a plan, which could potentially, stymie the offensive tackle and get the best of him. And one thing that we all probably know so far is if you look at his pass rush win rate, I believe he's like top 10 in the league at like 15% last year. So he has been generating pressure, even though I think he had maybe 7.5 sacks with the Chargers, maybe 3 more in the playoffs for 10.5. But, I think he's an ascending player. So that's good to see.
Yeah, I'd agree that he's an ascending player. I think sometimes it takes younger pass rushers that are like really good athletes that in college they generate pressure just because they're better athletes. And when you get to the NFL, they have to learn kind of to diversify, learn some new moves, and then string those moves together. So, and that's something I saw when he went to the Chargers last year. You started to see this plan developing, as we just saw that last sequence of 3 plays. And now we've got another sequence of 3 plays where he actually gets 2 sacks in these 3 plays. So this is him working against Titans. I think Titans left tackle Dan Moore. I think he previously was with the Steelers. He got a big free agency contract last year, which was probably a massive overpay, but we'll ignore that. Anyway, so he's working against him. So we got this one is the first sack, where it's the first play of this 3-play sequence. Again, 3 plays in a row, and he gets a sack here. So we again see he goes with that little stutter, goes for that cross chop. He actually misses the chop, but he does manage to get his outside arm with the kind of club that he follows up with, gets it on the elbow of the tackle, knocks that arm down, and then he tries to rip through, gets that path to the edge, and he just kind of dips under him, and he turns that edge, and is able to turn the corner quickly and actually get the sack this time instead of just the pressure. That's play 1 of the sequence. Play 2, This time he comes up with another different rush. He's just beaten the tackle outside to the edge. Even though he missed his cross chop, he still was able to beat him to the edge. So he gives a little stutter, gets his hands inside, once again goes to the edge, and is again getting the better of him. But this is a quick pass, getting the ball away.
There's Chig.
Commander Chig. We'll come to him at another point, probably next week.
Yeah.
But that was play 2 of the sequence. So we've seen 2 plays in a row where he's just gotten to the outside shoulder and gotten the better of the left tackle. So the third play of the sequence, what does he do? He sets up the same rush where he's again trying to attack the outside and showing that potential cross chop move. And this time he shows a nasty spin move to work back inside. So again, he's working that outside shoulder, coming up, showing that same stutter, threatening that same cross chop. You can see that inside hand comes across, looking like he's going to cross chop his outside arm, like we've seen a couple times now. And so the tackle is anticipating that. And what does he do? He actually shoots that hand through the arms and he spins back inside, really nice and tight inside, and gets his second sack of the 3-play sequence. So he does have this ability to not just show different moves, but sequence them together. He's clearly reading and understanding how a tackle is setting up to try to block him, and he's setting up moves with sequencing nicely. So it's not just, oh, I'm just going to rush speed constantly. It's, I'll threaten that outside shoulder. I can get the better of him outside. But once he starts overcommitting to that, I can then come inside with a spin move or a dive inside, or if he exposes his chest, I can convert to power. So he's clearly thinking his rush plan through. He's doing more than just being a really good athlete and doing the same move over and over again. He's got some different moves. He's got some diversity and clearly a developing rush plan. So I think that's a really positive thing, and that's something that should keep him developing and elevating as he progresses in his career the next few years.
And that's a great separator, I think, on the professional level. You kind of touched on the collegiate game versus the pro game. I feel like everyone's a great athlete. Everyone, has that physical attributes, but the fact that you are thinking about the game, how to kind of plan things ahead and to beat your opponent is, that's the separator on the professional level. I can see you're about to jump in or discuss coverages. I'm excited to see that too. My question to you, I don't know if you're going to cover this in the episode or if you even deep dive into it. He really took off the second half of the season when he joined the Chargers, and he, exploded. I think he had 0 sacks half of the year, 7.5 for last 13 games for the Chargers, and including 3 more in the playoffs. I'm curious what happened for the Ravens where he had such a slow start. Was it a lack of, was it a scheme fit for him? Was he just not really necessarily hitting the marks for what the coaches wanted? Like, what did you see so far if you got there?
No, I didn't when I wrote my post about him on Tuesday. I hadn't watched those Ravens games. I have since gone back and watched a few of those Ravens games, and I actually thought he was still generating a decent amount of pressure. He just wasn't finishing, and he wasn't getting the consistent looks that we're seeing here, where he gets multiple reps in a row against the same guy over and over again, where he can set up rushes and really dive into a tackle and focus on one guy and focus on how to beat that one guy. With the Ravens, he was kind of moving around a little bit more, going left to right, doing a little bit more stunting inside, lining up inside, and those kind of things. Playing a little bit more on rundowns as well. Whereas when he went to the Chargers, he became more of, it wasn't just like pass rush specialist where he only came in on third down. He did play on first and second down as well, but the Chargers had kind of a rotation where they had guys like Khalil Mack and a few other guys in there as well, where it was quite a rotation. He wasn't just playing, 70% of the snaps and playing a lot of rundowns. He was rotating in pass rush situations as well as other spots as well. So I think he got more opportunities to be more just of a pure pass rusher. So I think that probably led to it where he could just work a tackle over and over and get the better of him over the course of a game. But I still think he generated some decent pressure with the Ravens. It's not like he was terrible in Baltimore. And like last year, I think he had a 10-sack season last year with the Ravens. I think that was kind of what the couple of factors. He didn't quite have the plays that finished, but he still generated some decent pressure. And then we've looked at him as a pass rusher. An underrated part of his game that I think is important, and I'll come to why I think it's important shortly, but is the ability to drop into coverage. And now that they're paying him $100 million to be a pass rusher, so it's not going to be, he's dropping into coverage 20 times a game. But part of this scheme that we're expecting Daronte Jones to bring over from the Vikings is going to be really aggressive blitzes, but also a lot of disguise. And quite often you'll see pressures where a linebacker will blitz from the inside and an edge rusher will have to drop off outside to replace him in coverage. Now, it's not, as I say, it's not going to be 20 times a game. It might just be once or twice a game, if that. But you still need to have that ability to do that, and you need to have someone that can do that. And Oweh shows he is a great athlete, but he shows the ability to do that. So here we've got a bunch concept out here from the Dolphins where you've got this, I think it's a tight end running a deep corner route to kind of clear out. You got this outside receiver running a basic cross, and then you've got this inside guy running kind of a little arrow route where he's breaking outside and breaking underneath. You got Oweh on the edge here. He's going to drop out so that this linebacker can rush, and he does a pretty nice job matching this coverage. So now, in an ideal world, I think this is kind of what you would call a box coverage, where you have two guys deep and two guys underneath making a kind of a four-man box. And typically what you see is these guys play the first deep out, first deep in, first shallow in, first shallow out. So Oweh would be the first shallow in route. Now, he is a edge rusher, not versed in playing coverage, but what he feels is this guy's going out, this guy's going vertical, so he doesn't have to worry about them. His eyes go to this middle guy who is running over the middle, so he kind of attaches to that. Now, perhaps in an ideal world, he knows that he's got his safety here. He's able to pass that off and go and interrupt this guy. But what I do like is that he is being alert. He's reading the releases of different receivers. He is trying to match his coverage, which is something we expect them to be doing. And he's able to wall that guy off and stop him from getting the ball. And he is obviously the guy that's running the deeper route, which is more of a threat. Now, this ball does go to that receiver underneath, and they still get the first down, but it still shows that there is some ability in coverage there. He's not just a liability. He's not just someone that has to sink back into a zone and just hope that the ball doesn't get thrown to his zone. He's trying to identify routes and trying to identify like where the ball might be going and actively try to take that away, rather than just being like kind of a typical pass rusher that's like, I don't really want to be in coverage. I'm just going to sit here and do nothing and hope the ball doesn't come my way.
Mark, was he asked to do that pretty often in Los Angeles? I haven't really been keeping up with their defense. And do the Chargers run a 3-4? I don't know about that either. Yeah,
they do run a 3-4. He, as I say, it was like one or two times a game, if that, and that's what it will be here. And so this was the second time it happened in that Dolphins game, and this time he actually gets a hand on the ball. Somehow it's still completed, but this time he's just dropping off to a similar zone. And again, you can see he's being active in his coverage. So at first he hesitates because there's a bit of a play action fake. There's a fake handoff. There's a jet sweep. So he takes a little bit to diagnose what's exactly going on. But once he realizes it's a pass, you can see how the other guys that drop into coverage, they keep their eyes on the quarterback. He's dropping into coverage and he's looking for where the receiving threat is. You can see that, there's no threat to the flat out here. There's no threat in the middle of the field. What he's looking for is, this is the only real threat. And he's got his eyes on that receiver and he's going, where's that receiver going? He's running into the seam, and you can see at this point, he's potentially breaking inside or running some sort of curl or basic cross. So that's when he sees, okay, he's running inside and breaking inside. That's potentially into my zone. So that's when he starts getting his eyes back on the quarterback and he leaps up using the frame. We'll see it from the end zone angle. He actually gets his hand on that ball, which is kind of incredible, really. You can see it here.
Great.
He does that little hesitation, but then he diagnoses that actually it's a pass. He gets his eyes on Jalen Waddle. That's the threat. You can see him starting to break over the middle. So he gets his eyes back to Tua, who's anticipating this throw. And you can see leap up, full extension, gets his hand on that ball. And when you get the hand on the ball and you tip it, it's completely free for all. It could go anywhere at that point. It could go straight to his teammate for an interception. It could go flying over the top to the safety for another interception. It could go straight to the ground. Unfortunately, it somehow still manages to get to Waddle, and Waddle does a really nice job adjusting and catching that ball and securing it while taking a hit. But that's a really good play in coverage for what is a pass rusher that is only going to be dropping into coverage once or twice.
Athleticism through the roof. That was a fantastic play right there. Just curious about technique. Did he play that the right way, like turning his back to the quarterback, and was that the right kind of right down there?
It depends on how you want guys to play it. If we go back to it, you can see the rest of the guys are playing kind of spot dropping zone. Where you see everyone else is playing eyes on the quarterback. They're playing essentially a Tampa 2. You got two deep, you got the middle hole player, and you got your four underneath. Now these guys could all be just playing with vision, and he could be trying. It could be that he's taught to play with vision, but it could also be that he's feeling like I was a step late getting into my coverage because I was biting on that run fake. So then he's like, well, I need to get back and identify my threat. So he's just turning to run back to get into his spot. and that's when he sees, okay, that guy's breaking over the middle, so I'll adjust and get back to the quarterback and tip the pass and get unlucky that you couldn't turn that into an interception or at least an incompletion. So yeah, I talked about, like, I think that's important in this defense, and again, I want to emphasize he's not going to be doing this 20 times a game. It's going to be once or twice, if that. He's going to be rushing more often than not when he's being paid $100 million, right? But it is important. So if we look at, here's an example from the Vikings, where Durante Jones just came from. You've got 6 guys on the line of scrimmage here, and it's actually only going to be a 4-man rush where your 2 defensive tackles are going to widen to the edge, and you're going to run a little cross-dog stunt with these 2 inside linebackers. And what that means is you need your 2 outside linebackers, or your 2 edge rushers, to drop off into coverage and play coverage. Again, this isn't something that happens all the time, and you can have it so that one of these guys can rush and one can drop off, so you can have a lesser rusher. And in Minnesota, they have Andrew Van Ginkel here, who does this a lot more frequently, whereas the guy on the other side typically rushes a lot more often. So you can mix and match it, but it is something that they need both guys to be able to do occasionally. And you get the benefits of that here. So you see them drop off into coverage. You can see Andrew Van Ginkel gets over the slot, makes a little jam, and then peels off and gets into his zone. You can see the other edge rusher is just jamming Deebo Samuel at the line of scrimmage and preventing him from getting out. So when you think about, from a Commander's perspective, who this is against, Jaden Daniels' main 2 targets at this point of the year were Deebo Samuel and Zach Ertz. Now, Ertz has just been bumped off his route and has Van Ginkel sinking underneath it, so that kind of takes him off of it. And Deebo Samuel is your other check down, and he's being jammed by the other edge rusher on the line of scrimmage. So where's he going to go with the ball? And that makes him hold on to the ball. And we've talked about this play a couple times over the season. Yeah. But again, you just see what it allows you to do from a pass rush and from a coverage perspective. We saw that they were able to get both edge rushers in coverage, so they were able to drop 7 in coverage still. So this is only a 4-man rush. But what they're able to do is basically 2 of the Commanders' best assets are left tackle Larry Tunsil and right tackle Josh Connolly. Those guys aren't really blocking anyone here. The guards are blocking the 2 defensive tackles, and now your running back and your center are having to block these 2 inside linebackers on this rush. So that's the kind of scheme that you're dealing with, and McNichols does just enough to pick up this blitz, and Jaden does a really nice job avoiding it. But that's the kind of scheme that you're dealing with, right? That's why it's important for those edge guys to be able to drop off into coverage occasionally. Again, not all the time, but occasionally.
Just having the ability to do so. And that's actually really interesting. I see you're transitioning right here.
Yep.
That last clip that you showed me with the 3-4 linebackers and dropping back into coverage, it excites me because I think Washington has really improved their linebacking core and their front 7 in general, right? And I'm kind of curious about this, Mark. I'm going to throw the name Frankie Luvu out there so you can kind of have that in your mind while I'm asking this question. Where do you see everyone kind of like working together in tandem, right? We have Leo Chanel, fast linebacker, potentially a middle linebacker. He could be manning the inside. Frankie Luvu was more of an upfield kind of rusher. We see, Odafe Oweh pretty athletic as a rusher as well as Kayvon Chase on as well. It seems like we have multiple components. Like, I guess it's way early in the process, but do you have a vision of how they can work together?
Sure. I think if you take your base 3-4 front, you've got your 3 down linemen. That's probably going to be some assortment of Kinlaw, Payne, Settle, and Newton. It's going to be 3 of those 4 for the most part, right? If they sign anyone else, maybe will fit into that rotation. Then you got your 2 edge outside linebackers that are your edge rushers. One of them is going to be Oweh for the most part. The other one's going to be probably Dorrance Armstrong, and then you're going to have Chase on switching in with those guys. We'll talk about Chanel as we'll get to him shortly, and I think there's some different roles that he could play. I do kind of wonder whether there is a world in which they try him to be their new Andrew Van Ginkel, and we'll get into that. But I think that's less likely after they sign Chase on. I think what's more likely is you'll see Chanel, Luvu, and McGee all battle out for the 2 inside linebacker roles. And so I think that is what we'll probably see. And I don't know who wins out those battles. I'm not sure who necessarily plays the Mike role, takes the green dot and makes all the calls. In theory, it would be Jordan McGee, but we haven't seen him actually be able to do that because of the whole Bobby Wagner situation last year, but I've talked enough about that. So
I was going to say, I don't know if you want to kind of dive into this real one quick sentence. With the addition of Leo Chanel, do you think that's going to be the finality of Bobby Wagner here in DC?
Unless Wagner is happy to take a backup role where he's like staying with his coaches that he likes in Quinn and Ken Norton and staying with his teammate like Jaden Daniels that he likes, and he's happy to be that kind of mentor role, the way kind of Marcus Mariota has transitioned to that. I don't think Bobby Wagner is going to want to do that. I think he's probably too proud to do that, and I think he's probably earned the chance to try to go start somewhere else. So I think that's probably where Wagner ends up, somewhere else. If he wants to come and be that mentor, I'd absolutely have him back because he'd be terrific at it. But I think
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So Leo Chanel, another outstanding athlete, as we talked about, like 99 percentile. He was a 9.99 score, relative athletic score out of 10. I think he was ranked like third out of.
I saw that, like 1,300 people. Yeah, exactly.
So insane athlete. He's a little bit of an odd mover. Like he doesn't look like he's necessarily the best athlete, but he does everything very fast. He doesn't have any issues athletically, and as you'll see on this play, he stays in coverage, and the coverage is the thing that stood out the most when watching him. I know there's some people that question his ability in coverage and think he's a little bit tight-hipped. When I saw him, I just thought he's a guy that covers pretty well, and he covers in a variety of different situations. So this is his highlight play from this year. Everyone's probably seen this one by now. This is Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. He's trying to run a little wheel route, or I think it was probably meant to be some sort of out-and-up double move. Chanel's the end guy on the line of scrimmage. He was a linebacker. He's kind of rotated down to the edge. He does this kind of thing a lot. We'll get into that. But he's going to peel off and cover Mark Andrews. And what you're actually going to see off the snap, he's going to be really aggressive. He's going to get into Mark Andrews. He's going to go and shove him with a strong jam, knock him off balance, knock him over, and then he's going to turn and run with Andrews. Now, he gets into a little bit of a problem here where he's kind of peeking into the backfield to see if Lamar's throwing that way because he thinks Andrews is just working out to the flat. And that's when Andrews starts taking off down the sideline. But Chanel is able to, he's a better athlete than Andrews at this stage in his career, so he's able to adjust and stay with him down the field. And then we'll see this from the end zone angle. He gets an insane interception, but the end zone angle is the better one. As Lamar gets a bit of pressure and has to try to roll out and throws the ball up to his guy. You'll see it here. At this point, he's got his back turned, and he plays this really well. So at first, Andrews had kind of got a step on him, and so he had to focus on the receiver rather than try to look back for the ball. You focus on the receiver, make sure you get in what's called in phase, where you're still tight to the receiver, staying with him down the field. Once you feel like you're in stride with him, that's when you can start looking for clues for when the ball is coming. And so you can see his eyes are on Mark Andrews' eyes. He's looking to see if Andrews is looking back for the ball, what his body position's doing, if there's any hints for the ball is coming. And Andrews is looking back for the ball. He is starting to turn to try to catch that ball. And that's when Chanel starts to turn and look for the ball himself. That's when he's like, okay, that ball's coming. I can turn back and try to find it myself. You can see he turns back and he identifies where the ball is. And he makes this really nice play where he's still got his hand on Andrews, so he knows where he is. He's not losing track of the receiver, but he's at this point, it's the ball's in the air. I can see it. I'm becoming the receiver myself. And he turns, and this ball is just thrown slightly behind him. And again, it's targeted for Andrews, not Chanel, so it's not meant to be behind him. But he turns back and he makes this incredible one-handed reach to pull that ball off of the hands of Andrews.
Great play.
And pull it in for an incredible interception. It's a fantastic play, outstanding play, clear, huge highlight play. So that's him in man coverage. I mean, his man coverage isn't as consistently good as that, but that shows the upside of his man coverage ability. But it's not just man coverage. We know that Durante Jones is probably going to be trying to play some more zone and more match coverages. The Vikings ran plenty of quarters and match stuff. So here we see an example of him in quarters where he's got to play an underneath flat zone. He's more of a traditional off-ball linebacker here, lined up again over, I think that's Mark Andrews at the tight end spot. And he sinks back into his quarter zone. So what we get here is you get your two corners attaching to the outside receivers. They're playing deep. You got your safeties playing your inside quarters. And then you got your three underneath defenders where you got your middle guy. And then this guy's responsible for this flat. And you got Chanel here is responsible for this flat. So what he's doing is he's identifying that, okay, this receiver is running vertical. I don't have to worry about him. My only threat to the flat is this tight end. So he eyes that tight end and he can see after he's chipped on the edge, he's working out to the flat. So he naturally starts drifting out to the flat to match that, but his eyes then go into the quarterback. And the quarterback starts to line up to throw that ball out to the flat, and you can see he gets himself aligned, and then Chanel immediately starts to trigger on it. And it's, okay, I know he's lining up to throw that ball to the flat. I'm going to trigger on it. It's my only real threat anyway. It's my number one option to cover is the flat. I'm responsible for the flat. So he goes out and breaks on the flat nice and quickly, closes quickly. He's there just after the ball, and he makes a nice, strong open field tackle. Now, I want to wind this back. People will think this is a very basic play, and it is. But how many times last year did we see in Washington a player go to make this tackle in the flat and miss that guy, and it turned into a 20-yard gain at the sideline?
Absolutely.
I want to show that those basic, what we would call routine plays, aren't so routine for Washington. So
sadly,
we see that he is capable of doing that thing. But just to kind of emphasize the range that he has in coverage, the athletic ability, and something that we could see him doing in Washington with Durante Jones in this kind of defense. Here he is lined up directly over the center on the line of scrimmage as part of this kind of big blitz look. And we saw that look from the Vikings earlier where they were all up on the line of scrimmage. This is him on the line of scrimmage right over the nose tackle, right over the center, basically playing as a nose tackle, right? What the Chiefs are actually doing here is they're playing a Tampa 2. And in a Tampa 2, you need a linebacker that can sink back deep and play the deep middle hole so that these safeties can split wider and cover the deep pass. But when you do that, you quite often come up against a slot receiver or a tight end. In this case, it's a slot receiver that is just going to run straight down the seam. Now, that's, for most linebackers, a really, really hard responsibility to go from on the line of scrimmage over the center to 20 yards deep down the middle of the field trying to cover a slot receiver. For Chanel, he makes it look very easy. You can see off the snap, he's reading like who's running up the seam. First, his eyes are at the tight end, but then he's like, okay, the tight end is breaking here. Where's the slot receiver? Okay, that's the real threat. I can adapt, sink back, and he's running under that route, and he's staying with it down the field. There's other pressure, and the ball goes elsewhere. But you can see the ability, the athletic ability to go from lined up over the center on the ball to get 20 yards down the field and run with a slot receiver up the seam. That is exactly the type of thing that you will see in this defense with Durante Jones, where you need an athlete that is capable of being on the line of scrimmage and then sinking out into coverage to be able to disguise the different coverages that he wants to get to. So that's
a fantastic clip, Mark. Like, I'm glad you have an eye for that because the play didn't even go to him. There wasn't a throw at that ball, but you saw how much land that he covered. Now it's fantastic because we haven't seen that in DC in a very, very long time. We've seen cerebral linebackers that can, stop the run and blitz potentially, but not a true coverage linebacker. And it seems like Leo Chanel has an upside.
Yeah, and one more look of him in coverage here, where he's going to kind of match a route here. You got a very common combination here where you've got a basic cross from the inside receiver and you've got the outside receiver running a little spot route. Typically, you'll have the running back run a little swing to the flat as well to kind of create space and open up this spot route underneath. Chanel is playing as an edge rusher here, so you can see he's like on the line of scrimmage as an edge guy with standing up, essentially as a 3-4 outside linebacker, and that's why I think there could be a world in which he becomes their kind of Andrew Van Ginkel guy because he's a better coverage guy. I do think there's a downside to that as well, and we'll get to that if we have time. But it's just to show, again, he's capable of lining up on the line of scrimmage and then coming out and playing coverage. And so here he's going to drop out into coverage, and he's not going to necessarily know who he's meant to cover. He's kind of matching what route he needs to cover here. So he's turning and reading both these receivers, which when you watch a Durante Jones or certainly when you watch the Vikings defense when Durante Jones is involved, they're reading releases of receivers. They're not just dropping to spots and covering a zone. They're reading releases of receivers and matching their coverages to those releases. So here you can see he's turning and reading these receivers. You can see this guy's going vertical. I don't need to worry about this guy. My threat is this guy spotting up underneath, and that's exactly what he does. And this is actually former Commander Jahan Dotson who spots up, and Chanel is right there with him, takes him out of the play completely. Unfortunately, they have a little bust on this side, and they're able to complete a pass to the other side. But on this side of the field, that's exactly how you want it to be played. You have Chanel covering and boxing off that, walling off that inside route from Dotson, and then you have your safety in your corner able to kind of essentially bracket this other receiver. If he breaks inside, the safety takes it. If he breaks outside, the corner takes it. That's exactly how you want it to. That's exactly how you draw it up. And so that is something that I think is very much replicable in a Durante Jones defense. So that is coverage. But so he's Mark, also Go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick little joke. Stephen Dallas said, I could listen to Mark the whole day. Much love. I don't know if you're talking about his beautiful British accent or if you're talking about, or we just talking about his knowledge altogether. But no, we're very happy to have Mark on the show. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Steve, for listening. I appreciate that. Or watching. I appreciate that.
Man, I love you guys liking a British accent, because there are so many British accents. And if you know England and you know British accents, you know mine is not the smart, posh British accent at all. It's actually... I when I was in England, I lived in kind of the farmer, like not very smart, dumb accent kind of area. So my accent is more towards that kind of country accent, which is not very highly respected in the UK. But you know, I go on to America. You guys don't know.
It sounds regal to us. It sounds regal to us. So we're all good.
I'll take it. I'm happy about that.
Perfect.
So yeah. So run defense. Because he gets moved around a lot, he doesn't get to line up as just a normal linebacker and defend the run as much as you'd like him to. But he still shows that he is very capable in the chances he gets. And here we're going to see him do that, and we're going to see the athleticism first, and then we're going to see the physicality in a separate play. But this shows the athletic ability that we've already seen. You know, he's a great athlete, but this is how it translates to the run game. So he's in the middle of the defense here, but they're going to the Bills are going to have a jet sweep fake here, so they're going to bring a receiver across on a fake jet sweep, and that's going to get both these linebackers to shuffle across, and that is a deliberate ploy that loads of teams use. The idea is you get Chanel having to bump across a gap outside here, and that gives this right guard a really good angle when they're running a zone to the left. The right guard's able to then get a good angle to climb up and seal Chanel off on the backside. But Chanel's a really good athlete, so we'll see this here. Run this through, you get that jet sweep, and suddenly you've now got Chanel on the outside shoulder of the guard instead of directly over the center. That gives the guard a much better angle to try to go and reach him on this block. But Chanel's a better athlete than the guard. This isn't a bad guard at all. This is a really good guard. But Chanel's just an outstanding athlete. So he's just going to beat him to the spot, run straight through, and go make that tackle. So that's the athleticism part. That translates to the run game, right? What you really like about Chanel is that he's not just a really good athlete. He is very much willing to be violent and physical. So this time we've got a zone play to the right. Chanel again is playing off the ball, and the right guard's going to try to come up and block him, but you're going to see he's more than willing to go and mix it up with him. He's going to step up into him. He's going to know that I've got this B gap I've got to cover between the right guard and the right tackle. So he gets into that B gap, and then he explodes, gets into a really nice strong position underneath the tackle, underneath the guard, explodes up into his chest, stands the guy up. He does get moved out slightly, but he maintains his position in that B gap, and he gets that leverage where he's underneath the guard, and he's able to extend that arm out where he can potentially work back inside if the back cuts inside, but you can see the back is going outside, so he's able to get into that B gap, play into that B gap, and go and make that run stop for a minimal gain. So again, willing to be violent, and you want to see a real physical play. This one I tweeted out yesterday, so people might have seen this already. This one is one of the more insane plays I've seen from a linebacker. He's playing as essentially a 2 technique defensive tackle, where he's on the inside shoulder of this left guard, and he's going to get double teamed by the left guard and Ravens center, now Raiders center, Tyler Linderbaum. They're going to double team him. You're going to see a running back get motioned in and carry an inside run right at him. They're going to try to run right at him, as you should when you get a linebacker playing essentially a defensive tackle, right? This should be a win for the Ravens. But what he does is he doesn't shy away from it. He goes and takes on that double team, and he gets nice and low. You can just about see his feet spread wide, drops his weight, keeps himself low, splits that double team, goes to one knee, which is a really good defensive tackle technique to split a double team. You don't see very many linebackers being able to do that. So he's withstanding that double team, not getting driven back at all. And then the guard has to peel off to pick up the other linebacker, and that gives him an opening for him to then shed that block of Tyler Linderbaum and go make this run stop.
Wow.
And make that tackle. And I'll just run that back without me pausing it. I'll just let it play through, just to really appreciate just how good of a play this is from him. Split that double team, go make that play. That's an incredible play, and again speaks to that kind of physicality, the willingness to
willingness for sure.
And it also speaks to the kind of versatility and how the Chiefs kind of moved him around and put him on the line of scrimmage and put him inside, sometimes as a defensive tackle, and you wouldn't typically see that, but it shows that versatility. Another thing that I really liked about watching Chanel was he's got a really good awareness. He's really smart, football IQ kind of guy. And this kind of led to why I thought about Van Ginkel as a potential role for him, and I'll show a little bit more of that in a minute. But first, we'll focus on this play. So on this play, this is something the Chiefs did quite a lot, where they put him inside, where he's working against. This is against Lamar Jackson, right? And when you get an athletic quarterback, you quite often want to have an athletic linebacker play a quarterback spy, but you don't want to just sacrifice this guy and have him do nothing. So what the Chiefs have him do is they kind of fake him rushing, where he's gonna step forward and he's going to engage this right guard in a block, so that it's like he's at least occupying a blocker, so that the other guys are getting better matchups. But he's also not trying to rush. He's just kind of sitting there occupying the block while trying to peek into the backfield to see what Lamar Jackson is doing, so he can spy him, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what happens here is, well, he does that. He steps forward, he engages in that block, but he's kind of, you can see he's not at all committing to trying to rush. He's kind of sitting back and trying to peel off so that he can chase down Lamar. They've got another guy on this side also watching. And what happens is they get a little stunt and some pressure off this left side. And Lamar Jackson's looking outside to his right here, but everything's covered. So what he wants to do when this pressure is arriving in a minute is he wants to find his running back as a check down. And his running back's meant to check the blitz. There's no blitz coming, so he's meant to release out here to the flat. Now what Chanel does is really smart heads up play, is he spots this running back trying to release out here in this B gap between the guard and the right tackle. And so he's like, okay, I'll just engage with him and stop him from releasing. You'll see that here. It's like, okay, I'm going to engage with you. I'm going to take you on. You're going to have to block me, and you're not going to get into the release. And you can see that now. Lamar Jackson's under heavy pressure. He's looking for his receivers out here, but he doesn't feel like he can do that. He now just wants his check down to avoid this sack. And the running back's occupied. He can't just take that check down because the running back's not been able to get out into his release, because Chanel has made a really heads up play. Now, because Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson, he somehow manages to spin out of this sack and go to run around and turn this into a positive gain, but they're able to rally to the ball, and it's only a 2-yard gain. And we'll see it from the end zone angle here. Really heads up play again, sees that running back trying to release, engages with him, makes sure that he can't get out to the flat, and Lamar Jackson doesn't have that check down option. So just a really smart IQ, football IQ play. And what it reminded me of was this game from this play from the Commanders game. I feel
like we've watched this play so many times, Mark, over and over again. But one thing I will say real fast, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
What I like so far that you showed me is that there does seem to be a smart component to Leo Chanel, which I do like. And there also seems like a commitment, a willingness to put your nose into it. And I kind of like that as well. He definitely like getting his hands dirty, putting his hands on the running back, not worried about scrapping a little bit. So I like that.
No, not at all. He's definitely willing to be violent and physical with guys, which you love. So that play where he was kind of heads up and aware and did something that wasn't necessarily his responsibility, but it took away an option, reminded me of this one from the Vikings game against Washington this year, where we'd seen it a few times where the Vikings lined up everyone on the line of scrimmage and they showed a blitz, and the Commanders checked into a bubble screen and or some sort of screen to Deebo Samuel. And we saw it earlier in the game. It was 3rd and 17. They ran this same look, and Deebo converted a 3rd and 17 for a first down. But Van Ginkel's a really heads-up aware player, and on this play, he's meant to be joining the rush. He's meant to be blitzing or rushing off the edge, but he recognizes, last time they showed us this look, they actually ran this little screen to Deebo Samuel. So what he does is, instead of committing to the rush and just being thrown over the top of, he quickly peels off and is like, actually, I'll sink under this route from Deebo. You're not going to be able to throw this screen to Deebo. You're going to have to find another option. And of course, the fact that it's a screen, there is no other option because these guys are all blocking. This guy's just running a clear out. So Jaden has no other option but to scramble around. And that's when he then like, okay, well, my responsibility was to rush and cover this edge. So that's when I have to go to him. And that's when Jaden can throw this ball. But by that point, other defenders have rallied to the ball. He's delayed that screen getting thrown, and Deebo ends up losing a yard on that pass. So that was a really heads-up play by Van Ginkel, and that's the kind of play that Van Ginkel makes all the time for the Vikings. And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw that play from Chanel, where it's really heads-up play, going above and beyond what his responsibility is, and understanding, hey, this is what they're trying to do. This is a threat that we don't necessarily have accounted for. I'm going to peel off and do that and cover that and make sure that they can't hit that. So that when I saw that play, I started thinking maybe they feel Chanel can be shifted to the edge and be their version of Andrew Van Ginkel. My issue with that is his pass rush. When you see him line up and rush the passer, he does not rush very well. He's not got a set of pass rush moves. He doesn't have a plan like we talked about with Oweh. He just kind of runs at guys, and you'll see that here against, again, Jordan Mailata from the Eagles. He's lining up on the edge, just kind of rushes at him and gets nowhere, and Mailata handles him easily. They pass the ball, and that's nice and easy. Another example here against the Cowboys, this time against Tyler Smith. Smith gets a nice little shove on him, shoves him outside, and he's kind of immediately blocked out of the play. Too easy, right? So he's not a great edge rusher. So if you're putting him on the edge where he's going to be treated as an edge rusher and offensive linemen are going to block him, he will struggle. So I don't think he's necessarily someone that they can put in that Van Ginkel role straight away. They'd have to develop that pass rush. Maybe that's something they see as a long-term plan. With the signing of Chase on, I think that's probably less likely. I think you'll see him just stick to playing inside as an inside linebacker. But I think there is potential for him to be a blitzer from an off-the-ball linebacker position. So this time, it looks like he's rushing off the edge, but he's not. He's actually lined up over the tight end, and he's blitzing off the slot. So the offensive line don't treat him as an edge rusher because they've got 4 down linemen. So they're blocking these 4 down plus 1 linebacker from here, which means the running back is responsible for him. And that is a much better matchup for him. So he's going to come off the edge here, and he's going to use that athleticism to run into the running back and drive him back, and we'll see it from the end zone angle. Now, Jalen Hurts anticipates that and does a really nice job countering it, but you'll see it here. Comes in, goes and bulldozes over Saquon Barkley and runs him back into the quarterback, and Hurts has to take evasive action. And that's what you want from a blitz, right? You want the quarterback to be moved off the spot, not be able to just sit there and throw over the top of it. He's got to move off the spot. Now, unfortunately, Hurts does a really nice job scrambling and going to pick up a first down anyway, but it shows the potential as a blitzer. And how would that translate to this Daronte Jones defense? Well, this is where I think we'll see him kind of Eric Wilson, and I can't remember their other inside linebacker, but
Greenard, is that the one it is?
No, Greenard's on the edge out here. I can't remember who their inside linebacker is, but what they like to do is they put these inside linebackers on the line of scrimmage, and they will quite often do these read blitzes. Sometimes they will just rush them completely. Sometimes they'll bail out into coverage, as we've seen, but sometimes they'll do these read blitzes where they are reading the way the line slides. And you typically see this with the linebackers in the A gap, as we saw earlier, where if the center slides one way, the guy that the center slides to will drop off into coverage, and then the running back has to step up and block the other one. It's the same idea, but it's just done from the B gaps rather than the A gaps. So both these linebackers have the ability to rush or drop into coverage. It depends on which way the line slides. And in this situation, the line is going to slide to the left, which means the running back is going to have to step up and block the guy to the right. So this guy's going to drop off into coverage. This guy's going to blitz. And so you see that here. Line slides that way. They're both reading the way the line slides. The line slides to the left, so this guy drops off into the coverage, knowing that this guard is now being occupied by him, essentially, which forces this running back to step up and block this guy who's currently free. And then this guy's able to kind of run over the running back and go make some pressure and eventually go get the sack. But from the end zone angle, you also have to notice that the linebacker doing this that doesn't rush does also have to cover. And as we talked about with Chanel, he has the ability and the range to do this. So we've seen that he can kind of run at a running back and be physical and try to run him over, but he also has the ability to do the other side of this. So you do need 2 linebackers that are equally capable of rushing or dropping into coverage, because depending on which way the line slides, either one of them could be doing either role. So we see this, if we focus here on this linebacker, he has to drop off into coverage and now cover a lot of ground to get outside here, where you're playing essentially a quarters defense with quarters behind it, and he's playing an underneath zone underneath that quarters. And so he's covered he started here, he's covered a lot of ground to get over here, where he's kind of underneath this route, right? So, and he's got a lot of depth. That's a lot of ground to cover.
Absolutely.
It's not very easy for many linebackers to do that, but that's something I think Chanel can do. So he can do both aspects of that kind of read kind of blitz that we saw from the Eagles from the Vikings a lot last year. So I think Chanel's role ultimately will be as an inside linebacker, where he can rush, he can drop into coverage. He's a decent run defender. So yeah, I think that was the last clip I had. And we're
Perfect.
right on an hour. So yeah,
That's a perfect timing.
yeah.
I gotta leave in a moment, but I guess that's you kind of led me to my next question. So I do agree with you. I do kind of see him more as a Mike kind of inside linebacker component. My question to you is, do you think like are you content with their linebacker room right now? Are you content with Jordan McGee and Leo Chanel going into next season? Like, how do you feel about that? I mean, Jordan McGee is largely unknown right now, but he is pretty athletic as well. So I'm kind of curious, like, what do you see there?
Yeah, my one issue is who calls the defense. And you know, they've been training Jordan McGee to do that for 2 years behind Bobby Wagner. So you'd hope he'd be able to do it. But the fact that they didn't let him do it last year, where we actually got to see him do it in action. Like, there's one thing being able to do it practice and reps and stuff. There's another where it's live bullets in games, right? And being able to handle all of that when it actually matters. So the fact that we didn't get to see it, there's just the doubt we haven't seen it. Hopefully he can handle that. I don't know if Chanel is the kind of guy that can do that or not. He didn't do it with the Chiefs. They had Nick Bolton doing all of that stuff. So I don't know if he can or not. He seems to be quite a smart and aware guy. Maybe he can handle it, but he hasn't done it. Luvu hasn't really done it either. So the question you have is, can McGee handle that responsibility and still play as fast and as physical as he likes to? Hopefully he can. It seems to be they feel like he can, and that's why they are kind of betting on that. And they haven't gone and signed a true Mike linebacker. And maybe they feel like Chanel is capable of doing that. As I say, he is quite a smart guy. Seems to be, at least on the field. So maybe they feel like he can do it as well. But the one tentative part of it is that we haven't seen any of those guys actually do it in a live game. So that'd be the question. But you know, I don't think you'd want to block the development of Jordan McGee at this point. I think if he's not going to play this year, when are you going to play him, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's going to be competition between those three for those two places. One of them is going to have to do the Mike role. So I'm fairly content with that inside linebacker room. I think if you went and found if you signed Bobby Wagner back, he's just going to block McGee or Chanel or Luvu. He's going to block one of them from playing. So I think give McGee that chance to call the defense. Maybe Chanel can do it. One of them, give them a shot, and let those three compete for those two spots.
Absolutely. So, Mark, thank you, by the way. That was fantastic. I really learned a lot about Odafe, Oweh, and Leo Chanel. Thank you to the 1,600 people that watched us live today. That was fantastic. We had a lot of comments, a lot of questions in the chat. We really do appreciate that. Me and Mark typically do a film room every Wednesday. We do it, consistently throughout the season. We've kind of been pulling it back a little bit because of the offseason and the downtime. We have Chika Conco and Nick Cross, and me and Mark will talk and look at our schedules for next week and probably put together something for next week. Thank you guys for watching again. Definitely give us a follow. Give Mark a follow on his Substack. He has some great content. Definitely give me a follow at gcarmy21 on X. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Peace out. See you guys.